Good Monday morning to you. I'm Dan Kopp, and with me today is Ty Firsching. I'm coming to you live from Madison, Wisconsin. We are sorry for a bit of a delay of starting. We were going to start at 10 o'clock, but unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties. As Ty mentioned last week, he's over in Uganda, and at times there are internet power, various issues that go on with doing a live broadcast when he's in Africa and I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm Dan Kopp, founder and CEO of Leading Like a Buffalo, a leadership training company. And Ty, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Morning stateside, that is. It's afternoon here. We always have a little bit of issue here, it seems, but that's okay. We're back on track. Again, my name is Ty Firsching. I am the founder of Trade Leadership, and Dan and I are working in a program that is quite exciting for us at this project. So we're glad to be able to share it with you all. Dan?
Right on. So,
Nexus, right?
Say again?
Today we're talking about the Nexus of Ape and Buffalo. Is that right?
We are. So, as you may have caught last week or in the description for this program today, we have developed an approach to leadership called enhanced leadership. And it's not earth-shattering. It's just a different way to look at leadership and leadership growth. And its basis is founded in both of our approaches to Ty's personal engagement and my leadership. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we came up with the enhanced leadership based on our individual approaches coming together over the years. So Ty and I have known each other for many years. He's the first person I met when I joined the Army way back a month after I graduated high school, way back in the day. So we've been friends and colleagues since, and the last several years we've been collaborating on different things via video chats, roughly weekly for the last couple of years. Well, like I said, he's over in Uganda and I'm here in Madison, Wisconsin. And we've developed this approach called enhanced leadership, and with a working subtitle of when ape meets a buffalo. So what does that mean? Well, my approach to leadership is such that it's got to resonate with the individual, and it's got to be aligned with your personal ethics, morals, context, and abilities. One of my key tenets is be the buffalo. So I wrote a book called The Power of Me Leadership, and I discussed 9 leadership tenets, and one of the tenets is be the buffalo. So throughout my career, both in the Army and then in public education and now in the entrepreneurial world of business, I have always approached life like if there's something in front of me that needs to be addressed, I address it. So it was a logical tenet to include in my book because that has led to success for me. And when I describe it to people and they sort of grasp and understand what being the buffalo means, it makes a huge impact for a lot of people, both in their leadership world and just in their personal lives. In other words, be the buffalo. If there's something in front of you that needs to be addressed, address it. If you have a critical conversation you have to have with a loved one, a coworker, a boss, somebody who works for you, a colleague, Ty and I, whatever. The worst part of that is the dread leading up to the discussion rather than the discussion itself. So why own that and feel all that dread and lose sleep when you can have the discussion and get it behind you? So I hate confrontation, but I like it behind me better than I like it in front of me. So I'm going to get through it, emotions in check, take care of the other person while I'm doing it, but I have to address the issue. That's where the buffalo idea came from. So people know me as be the buffalo. I have for a couple of decades now had that sort of persona with people with whom I've worked. Got the tattoo to show for it. Be the buffalo. There's a buffalo in the front of my book. So people loosely refer to me as the buffalo tenets. Ty does it all the time. And I'm the buffalo in this scenario of when ape meets the buffalo. But the idea behind what I do with leadership is leadership can be done by anybody. I've got 9 tenets that I describe in my book and that we're going to further flesh out in the book on which we're working right now. And the basis of that is you've got to, you embrace them. You'll be a better leader, but you've got to embrace them in a manner that's right for you. You can't lead like I do. I can't lead like you do. Ty can't lead like I do. I can't lead like he does. Even though we're similar age, we both went in the Army right after high school. But after that, our paths sort of diverge. We were brought up differently. Everything that makes us different as human beings makes our leadership different. So being the buffalo works, but you can't do it like I do, and I can't do it like you do. And that's my approach to leadership. I help leaders lead confidently. Once they get over that hump of realizing they've got it in them to lead, I help them take it to another level, because it's about embracing who you are at your core, your ethics, your morals, and working within your context. And you can lead if you do those things. So that's what I bring to the table as the Buffalo, with the Buffalo tenants. Ty, would you like to talk about Ape for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. Dan mentioned he goes by Be the Buffalo. I refer to his book as Be the Buffalo, and that's not even close to the title. But I go, well, just read it. You got to, well, what's the name of it? I'm like, it's Be the Buffalo or Tenants or something. I'm like, hold on. And then I have to think it's the power of me leadership. And then it goes into Be the Buffalo. The whole idea, why I refer to it as Be the Buffalo, is very similar to why I refer my program as APE, or Active Personal Engagement, is because the active personal engagement is really the culmination of the tenets in my book. And ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, I named my components tenets as well. I messed around with pillars, I messed around with all these things. Like, no, tenets sounds good. So for our active personal engagement, it's very interesting, because we have active discernment, personal state, and engaged values. And that's where the three things come together for active personal engagement. And dealing with that, we start with a voyage of our engaged values, which you may hear as core values, you may hear as the guiding principles of one's life, and all these things you've heard before. Engaged values to me are the values, the actions that you're engaged in on a daily basis, which help frame who you are and how you act. Okay, and personal state is simply put, we're all familiar. It's so much more than how you feel inside. Personal state. There's a piece of more that goes on how you feel inside. It deals with external piece. It deals with how you think. It deals with the words that come out of your mouth. And for me, simply put, personal state, if you're staying awake at night because you made a decision, you probably didn't make the right decision. Unless you get super happy about yourself, and then you're just excited that you made the right decision. But that means there's a conflict there. It could violate one of your engaged values. It could compromise one. You're just nuts. Oh, your gut is not telling you. And Dan will be the first to tell you he leads by his gut. And so as well do I. But you also have to have some commonsensical awareness of what your gut is telling you. You get to know your gut. It's your gut. Okay. And then active discernment is really the culmination of making the best possible decision with all the information involved, ensuring that it doesn't interfere with your inner peace inner peace, interfere with your personal state or violate your values that govern you. So that culminating together, we had these two individual separate programs. And when I read Dan's book, he had actually sent me a copy before I think you published it.
Right.
And shortly after that, I was finishing mine. I actually have one coming, but he's read it, and we said, well, wow, there's these strands that interlock, and we came to this idea of when Ape meets Buffalo, and this being the nexus of Ape meets Buffalo, we have these different strands in our books that actually meet together. And back to Dan's Be the Buffalo, not only is that a tenet, but that's really the culmination of all his other tenets. If you look at, I don't know if you ever saw it like that, Dan.
I have. That's a good point. I struggle with the order. If you read my first book, it's sort of here's 9 tenets, and I posit that in the book that there's a list. There's no particular order, pick and choose, whatever. But now that I'm working through them, working with other leaders, presenting them, etc., I've realized there is a logical progression of them. And it's very easy to think that Be the Buffalo is the last one, because they do all lead into them to some degree. But I'm right back at gut leadership, because when you do all the other tenets right, plus you have experiences behind you in leadership and following, your gut will be stronger, and all your experiences will allow you to start trusting it better. So Be the Buffalo could be last, but I really think it might be. It's a work in progress. So our book will have it maybe in an order that makes sense when we publish, but we might change it in a future edition. I don't know. But right now I'm at Be the Buffalo does make sense, but gut is the culminating factor.
Right, right. And it's just interesting how they both come about because, like you mentioned, we both basically had similar paths in our lives, but our leadership styles are different yet the same. The principalities remain the same. And in your book, you deal with ethics and that integrity part. And in mine and Ape, I deal with that as well. But mine are called engaged values. But it's a different degree. I really struggled. I wanted to say ethics, but I remember talking to people. Once you say ethics, don't hang up, guys, if you're on, okay, because that's what happens. You say ethics, hear about ethics. Don't tell me about my ethics. But people know what they do every day, but it's really ethics, okay? Your behavior, your ethics, like that. I won't say that aloud. But anyway, so we have that first strand, I think, that comes together and that helps form our nexus, is that ethical consideration of the way you act and the way you believe.
I agree. There's two things I want to point out. First of all, you said we both sort of be the buffalo, but I also include what I quoted you: commonsensical awareness, as if I don't. So I believe I have common sense, but maybe I don't. Ty is on the outside looking in. I thought I used it. Maybe I don't. I also like your use of the word engaged values versus core, because when people think core values, it's very, very easy to think, what are the positivities that I exude? I'm about family, I'm about teamwork, etc. But if you really examine your engaged values, there are things that you are engaged in value-wise that probably aren't always positive. So that engaged values is huge versus core values, because core values might be where you aspire to be and when you operate when you're at your best version of yourself. But I guarantee you there are engaged values you'd like to diminish. So thinking 100 steps forward, when we're talking with people and we talk about engaged values and we help people identify them, we've got a game plan in front of them. Like, all right, so here's your engaged values. Which one of these are actually positive? Great. Accentuate those 3 or 4. Do you have some negative ones? Oh, you do. Let's put a game plan in place to get rid of those 2 or 3 negative ones. And what positive engaged values do you aspire to own and exude on a daily basis? Let's put a game plan in place to get those incorporated into your daily repertoire as well. So engaged value is huge versus core. And it does come back to ethics. You got to be a good person, and in your actions and words have to match one another, and you have to show that to people, because if you are unethical, people are going to see it and they're going to remember it.
Yeah. That's funny. You said the positive. I was like with you. I'm like, oh yeah, engaged values, because when you mention core value, it's so hard that people don't like, in general, introspection. They don't like to examine themselves. I mean, that's it goes against. I know myself. I don't need to examine myself. I was that way. I'm a math guy. Why would I need to examine myself? I know who I am. Like that. That was my mindset in my teens and early 20s, right? But when you start going your engaged values, you start realizing, man, that's a behavior that that's an action I do quite often, and I really don't think it's a good action. It's always positivity, and it's funny because I'm wearing the shirt "Avoid Negativity" today, like that. And so, and I didn't even plan on having this conversation, but you hit it, because if you identify through your actions that you have an engaged value that's not quite where you want it to be, meaning it's less than stellar, then you can attack it, come up with a plan to reduce that behavior. And you do that enough, that behavior subsides. And so it's that growth. And it's so cool, because when you think of it, engaged values not only accentuate the positive, but you can eliminate the negative as well. Isn't that a song?
I believe it is. Please don't sing it. I've heard you sing too many times.
I don't sing anymore. I got in trouble once.
Good.
So anyway, that's just some of what tenet was your ethics one? I'm trying to find, because we're dealing with
reproach,
right?
Be beyond reproach.
That's
simple as that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so that's the strand. That's the first strand of the nexus. And when I think of the nexus, I think of 2 ribbons of light. because I'm a sci-fi guy. So like, don't enter the Nexus, like that. And then the strands that came together would form it's a more solid, dynamic, cohesive, and complete nexus in our leadership styles. I use a lot of what Dan says when I speak, and I'm sure Dan, I think he tells me he uses a lot when he speaks. But we decided, wow, these two really work together. And it's like the piece I kind of was not missing, but man, it really, there's a culminating factor that happens when we start talking about both programs.
I agree. It looks like you might be having some internet connectivity issues here. Your face got fuzzy for a second.
It just came back, I think. Yeah.
All right, we're good now. Yeah, I do use your stuff, and then in my after action, like I'll ask people a little survey: what'd you like? What did you dislike? What could I improve? Whatever, and I just tell them anything that's negative. Oh, that was Ty's stuff. I'm kidding.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Out there.
I'll take it. I'll take the absolute value of
it. Hey, just for those viewers at home, if you are listening, we could hear the screeching of the soccer players or the football players outside your residence again a few minutes ago while you were talking. So he's got little kids playing soccer, football all the time outside of his place of residence, and we can hear him on occasion screeching, and they're out there having a ball. So in case you heard that, I heard it plain as day, and I think Ty is a little bit immune to it at times. It happens all the time, he tells me. Hey, as Ty pointed out last week, if you are watching us live, feel free to drop a comment or a question in the box, and we will, by all means, try to address every comment and question that comes in while we're talking. We don't want to make this into a 2 or 3 hour discussion, but if you've got something that's relevant or you have a quandary you want us to discuss, and there'll be at times, quite honestly, we're just going to get on here and let's just talk leadership. Who's got an issue they want to discuss or a quandary they want to just talk through with us? Because another tenet of mine is lead like King Arthur. In other words, get your trusted advisors and listen to them. They have points of view you may have not otherwise considered. So you might be a solopreneur. You might be the only C-suite executive in your organization. You've got nobody to turn to. Come up with a question. If drop it in the chat box, we will answer the best we can. It doesn't mean we're right. It just might provide you a different way of looking at your issue that may lead to the right answer. It might be the right answer. Who knows? I can't speak to that, but you just might get a point of view, or your answer might be a little bit of what you're thinking, a little bit of what Ty's thinking, a little bit of what I'm thinking. You put it together and you've got the right answer. Speaking of the right answer, Ty, go ahead. I was chuckling a minute ago in regard to Ty saying if you lay in bed at night and you can't sleep because of the decision you made, it might not have been the best. I was thinking, well, sometimes you sort of have to pick the decision that stinks the least. And my mind went back to COVID and look at all the decisions that people in positions and organizations had to make. Are we virtual? Are we not? Are we mandating masks at the onset or not? All those different decisions, none of which sounded good. You just had to take the one that stunk the least. So even though you might have made the best decision, it still theoretically could have been a crappy decision just because nobody was happy with it. Masks, for example, I'm pretty sure most people who mandated masks didn't like wearing them. But it wasn't about that. It was about trying to keep people safe. So it is what it is. Decisions sometimes are not fun to make, and you have to own them. Another tenet: own your decisions.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we'll get into all that.
I agree totally, absolutely. Because when you make the decision, it's to make the best possible decision that you possibly can. You're not going to make everybody happy all the time,
right?
So that's the whole idea of active discernment. Is you have all this information, and your personal state ties in with your value taking care of people, right? Like that, right. Or your tenet taking care of people, and your discernment kind of ties in with. Well, it does tie in with lead like King Arthur, because you're taking all these possible viewpoints as you're making a decision. But a lot of times it's not going to be make everybody happy. So the idea is to minimize the potential for negativity, whether it's other departments or other people, and understand that you made the best decision you possibly could. And if you go to bed thinking that and knowing that, not just thinking it, but knowing it, actually putting valid effort into doing it, then you're going to sleep well, because you know what? There's no, was there another possibility? Maybe there was, but you didn't have it at that time. And sometimes you're rushed by a deadline. And that's when all this practice of active personal engagement and the Be the Buffalo tenets come into play, because the more you practice, when it comes to high pressure situation time, it's going to come out. You go bam, bam, bam. There we go. And more often than not, you're going to end up making the best possible decision for that situation at that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's,
well, I think that about wraps up our discussion for this week. And we are going to do this 10 a.m. Central Time, if technology allows for it, over in Uganda and at times here in Madison. But our goal is to do this weekly at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time on LinkedIn Live. And we're going to continue to discuss the enhanced leadership. We're going to discuss our own tenets. We're going to take any and all questions from the audience. If you've got a quandary, please join us and we will address it. And we'll answer it if we can in real time. If not, we'll follow up in the following week if possible. And we're here to learn together. We're here to grow together as we continue to perfect our approach to leadership called Enhanced Leadership. We continue to work on our book in the background, Becoming an Enhanced Leader. We're going to do this. It's fun, it's invigorating, and it's a great way to start the work week. So, Ty, do you have any last minute thoughts?
Happy Monday.
Say again?
No, have a great week.
Right on.
Happy Monday. And, just think about what you're doing. If you have any questions, come next week. All right. Bye.
Right on. This is leadership. You can do it. Good luck.